All right. Welcome to the Young Entrepreneur Syndicate. And well, there's Taylor. Welcome, Taylor. Everybody, we are glad to have you on tonight. Sorry that we missed you last week. Jim and I talked about that just before we got on the call tonight. Things happen and you deal with them, and that keeps us going and keeps us strong. So it was one of our members texted out. He said, does anyone see the irony in this topic tonight with our dealing with failure and our techno failure? So the first thing I want to talk about tonight, we are talking about sharing your struggles, right? And failure is one of those things, but a lot of people want to keep their failure to themselves. Obviously, you don't want to publicize your failures, but at the same point in time, you don't want to keep it so private that people can't offer help. That's number one. So sharing your success is easy. That's the fun part, right? But sharing your struggles is just as important. And Jim and I, we just recorded a show for the Young Entrepreneur Syndicate with the Answer is Yes podcast. And one of the things we were talking about was being authentic and, the people who posture their way through. And that's the last thing that you want to do. So sharing your struggles makes it real. All right. And we all have those struggles, whether it's in business or our personal lives or anything else. And if you want people to embrace your success, the easiest way for them to do that is if they have been with you on the journey so they know the struggles you've gone through. And that is true in so many cases. I know that if any of you follow Jessie Lee Ward on Instagram or Facebook, TikTok, she's real big on TikTok. She goes by Boss Lee, right? And she talks about how it was easy for people when she was buying her first Toyota 4Runner, right? Because they saw the old rundown, broken down car she was driving before. And then when she traded that up for a Range Rover, people were okay with that. And then when she eventually traded that up for her Ferrari, right? Lamborghini, whatever it was she was driving next, it wasn't like she was posturing. It wasn't like she was in their face because they had been with her through the struggles. And so it's a lot easier to embrace that success if people have shared the struggle with you. And so last week, you all shared the struggles with us. I appreciate that very much. So tonight, I'm going to share a struggle with you. We're going to do something a little bit different tonight. So I've had a week to prepare now because of our last thing. So I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to tell you a true story about one of my struggles. It starts with a dream, as most struggles do. So I'm going to share my screen here real quick. Jim, if you can get my screen share up there. And we'll pull it up. All right. Can you all see this?
Not yet, Rod.
Not yet? Okay. Try it again. There we go. Can you see this now?
Yep.
Lessons from Great Northern. This is one of my big failures. And Great Northern, for those of you who don't know, you've probably heard of the Great Northern Railroad, Great Northern Brewery. And this little thing is a 6-mile hike. And it took me 12 years. And it's got 15 lessons attached. So this is my journey of struggle. This is Great Northern Mountain. Okay. I'm going to run through this in about 20 minutes. I first saw Great Northern Mountain when I had my kids, my wife and my kids. This is from Firefighter Lookout on the other side of a valley, about 12 miles, 10 miles as the crow flies, maybe, from Great Northern Mountain. And we were up huckleberry picking, and I looked at that mountain and I said, that was in 1989. I said, I want to be on the top of that mountain. I've never been there. I want to see what the world looks like from the top of that peak. And it took me 2 years to find somebody. My wife told me, she said, if you can find someone to go with you, I'm all in. Well, I didn't want to just climb to the top of the mountain. When I got to the top of the mountain, I wanted to do something. So the lesson is, have a goal when you reach your first goal. My goal was to golf off of the top of that peak. And that's me on the top. And of course, you can't put a tee in the rock up there. So I had film canisters. And I brought 6 balls. And the guy who went up there with me, we each took three swipes, 3 drives of 6 balls off of the top of Great Northern Mountain. All right. It's 8,705 feet, and the wind always blows. And I don't know how many golfers we have on here. I'm not a golfer, but I can tell you that when I nailed that ball and it got the wind, it went up and up and up and out of sight. You could not even see it. So it was a pretty spectacular thing. I don't know how many people you know who have actually golfed off the top of a mountain. I joke and say that in 500 years, 1,000 years, there'll be an archaeologist down there saying, my gosh, they used to have a driving range up here. So that was my goal, to be on the top of Great Northern Mountain and golf off of it. Well, the neat thing is I didn't want to just be up there by myself. After I made it up there, I thought, how cool would it be if you see that little rock pile down here? Okay, that's a cairn. And inside that cairn is a tube, okay, that the Forest Service puts up there. And you actually unscrew the lid on the tube and you can sign into the logbook, the date, time, temperature, make notes. And I said, I want my kids to be on the top of that mountain. That was my goal. I want my family on top of this mountain with me. The view was incredible. The hike was incredible. And so that was my next goal. Now, we didn't have the internet back then. And if we did, I'm going to read this to you so you don't have to read it. It said, this is somebody describing the trail to get to the top of the mountain. This is not a trail. This is a mountain goat path that some foolhardy person decided to follow to the summit. I just want to make that clear. All these diehard hikers saying it was brutal are not painting a clear picture of the trail conditions. Though mad props to them. When I was there, which was over a year ago, there was no signage. The trail was not marked on any printed map that I could find, and it was not maintained in any way. There was an eroded dirt path that literally goes straight up, and when it levels out just enough that you are not sliding backwards the whole time, it's a hell of a steep. So unless you are a super fit hiker who regularly engages in long, challenging hikes with lots of elevation gain across different surfaces, I would skip this. Like I said, we didn't have the internet when I did that, or I probably wouldn't have told my wife that we were going to climb to the top of that mountain with our kids, 2 5-year-olds and a 7-year-old. And by the time I talked her into it, we had a 9-month-old baby. So before you called Child Protective Services on me, this is how we raised our kids. This is my 4-year-old up on top of a rock face that he climbed, free climbed. And we used to do that sort of thing on weekends. My boys were both belay certified at a very young age. It was great to see. And so we lived in the mountains, and I had done the hike, so I knew what was in front of us, and I knew that we were able to do it. My wife didn't want to do it, and she said, I don't have a good feeling about this. But my wife loves me. And she said, okay, we'll do it. So this was in the trees when we took a break. She's nursing our 9-month-old baby, Taylor. My 7-year-old daughter is here, and my 2 boys, both aged 5. And we were hiking up to the top of Great Northern Mountain. So a couple of lessons already. Set your sights high. All right? That's it. Have a goal when you get there. Now, there was a 10% chance of rain. I was going to do this in 2 steps. I was going to make it to the timberline the first day. We were going to camp out overnight, and then we were going to summit the next day, because that was the hard part was the first day. Second day was just going to be take it easy because it's more critical. This is what 10% chance of rain means in the mountains in Montana. This is what we lived through. We were at the timberline in a thunderstorm. Rain came down like crazy. Our hair was on end. There's so much electricity in the air. And we slept through it like babies. My kids still to this day love thunderstorms, didn't bother any of us. We were huddled together. And when we woke up in the morning, this is what the tent looked like. It was on its side. And I will tell you that there was probably 50 extra pounds of water in all of our gear. It was a mess. And this is what we looked down on. We had clouds above us. You could not see the summit. And there were clouds below us. And we were soaking wet. All right. So, lesson number 2. Lesson 1 was set your sights high. Lesson 2 is stay close to each other when it storms. Number 3 is stop and enjoy the view. It did not get better than this right here. Number 4 is know when to turn back. There was no way I was going to take my kids up that treacherous trail to the summit after what we'd experienced. It was too wet and dangerous. So what happened was we decided to break camp and go back home. And we were maybe 50 yards down the trail when I heard what sounded like a baseball bat being broken. And it was a little pebble on the trail. And my wife's ankle hit it. And she was carrying our 9-month-old baby on her back in a backpack. I had the other gear. Kids had their own gear. And this is what happened. Now, this was before alert helicopters and cell phones. And so we had a couple of choices. We're about 2.5 miles straight up. Every step on this hike is either up or down. No way to get mules up there. No helicopters at that time. And I said, well, baby, you can wait here. I'll start you a fire and I'll run down. You can keep the kids here if you want because she's nursing the baby. And I'll run to town. I'll get help back up here. But then it's probably going to be middle of the night before we can litter you off of the mountain. Choice number 2. We can all go down together. All right. And what we did was we splinted up her leg. And my wife, God bless her, came down 2 miles of a vertical mountain path on her butt. And I packed the baby on my back, all the extra gear, and I couldn't carry the rest. So I literally had a rope on it and I drug it down the mountain, over logs, the whole thing. The younger kids were fine. To them, this was just an adventure. But this is the next lesson. Watch your step. It's the little things that will trip you up. The little things. Now this gets to several different lessons. Be resourceful, be strong, and stay together and carry each other's loads. I had to pack the extra load. That's what happens when things get tough. You've got to pick up the extra slack for people. And I'm hoping you're picking up the business lessons in this too, people, okay? There are business lessons in this. Be resourceful, be strong, stay together, and carry each other's loads. That's what got us down off of that mountain. And I can tell you that when we got down off of that mountain, and my wife was stellar, absolutely stellar. She would not go to the ER right away because, of course, she needed to go home and take a bath. She couldn't stand on her legs, so she couldn't take a shower. She had to take a bath and get cleaned up before you could go to the ER. Needless to say, we didn't make it to the top of Great Northern, but I still had the dream. All right. I keeping it real. I was humbled. My wife told me she had a bad feeling about it. I did it anyway. Well, this was a good thing to do. Remember, this is another lesson. There's no place like home. And there was nothing sweeter than getting back home. And by then, the weather had changed. We see this in our climate a lot. That tent and everything else stayed wrapped up, and it was in the garage. It was pouring outside for a couple of days. By the time I opened it up, it was all moldy, mildewy, and I had to throw away almost all my gear. So it cost me big. It was a humbling thing. Still felt good to be home. Here's the next lesson. Know when to go for help. Sometimes you just got to make the call and say, we're throwing in the towel on this and we're going to have to go get help. Make the decision and do it. This gets to the fun part though. Yeah, if I'm nothing, I'm patient and I'm persistent. I think most of you know that about me already. So in 1996, I went up with another friend of mine just to see what the conditions were like. In 1999, I took my oldest daughter, who is now 15, and my boys, 12 years old. And I got to the summit in 1999. So 7 years later, I got 2 of my kids up there. That wasn't good enough. In 1992, those are my 2 oldest boys. That's scaling the false summit before you get to the top of Great Northern. So we've probably got about a half a mile to go after climbing up this. All right. This is me with the binoculars, my 2 boys, and my youngest daughter, 12 years old, on top of Great Northern Mountain. 12 years. It took 12 years for me to realize that dream. And you'll notice this rock cairn, the one I golfed next to, it's now almost 3.5 feet tall. Every time somebody goes up, they put more rocks on top of the pile just to say we've been here and done that. My wife's leg was healed. She was up there with us. She was the one taking that picture. My son here, this is his second trip to the top. He's signing in the logbook right here. What you can't see on his right foot here is he had 5 screws holding his metatarsals together, and they had pulled 3 of them out. He still has 2 screws holding his right foot together. And he came up there with us even with that. He was healed. Okay. So that is a 12-year journey to the top of that mountain. And just so everyone has proof, that's my wife in the hat and the black on the way down. So be patient and be persistent. Those are the next lessons. Share your dreams. That's the next lesson. My next dream is to get my grandchildren up there. So we got to start training. And the 15th lesson on this, expect the unexpected. Will always make the best memories. And what I mean by that is, I told this story at my oldest son's wedding 9 years later. 9 years after this picture was taken, we were in the stratosphere in a private room in Las Vegas. And everyone we had a private dinner up there for the wedding party and all the family. And I told this story for everybody that was there, mostly for my son's new wife and their family, because they needed to know what they were marrying into. We are tenacious. We don't give up. We weather the storms. We're there for each other. We will do whatever it takes to get to the top, and we will enjoy every minute of it. And I got to share that story with that wedding party in 2013. And in 2023, I'm sharing it with you. Lessons from Great Northern. They apply to my life. They apply to my business. They apply to everything that I do. And I hope that a little 15, 20-minute run through of one event in my family can be helpful for you as well. So if you want it condensed into 3 different things, when the going gets tough, 1, review your options. 2, evaluate your resources. And 3, focus on your priorities. My priorities were I wasn't going to quit. And I focused on that. So whatever it is, my challenge to you guys, everyone on this call tonight, is I want you to look back. I don't care if it's 10 years. I don't care if it's 2 years. I don't care if it's 6 months. What is that dream you had? What was that one thing that you let go of? What was something that you had on your list that you pushed aside and put away? I don't care if it was from when you were a teenager, in high school. What was it? Pull it out and dust it off. Pull it out and dust it off, and just see if you can breathe new life into it. And if you can't do that, what lessons can you pull from it? Because there's always a lesson in what we had. Even the dreams we put away, even the dreams that we put in a drawer, there's still a lesson in there. So that's my challenge to all of you tonight. Pull it back out and see where it takes you. So that's a little bit of a personal struggle, a personal failure. And I will say that it was a big deal to all of my friends, acquaintances, people I'd gone to church with when I made it to the top with my whole family, because they knew what we had been through. They knew the struggles we had. They knew about Marcy's broken leg. They knew how much effort we put into getting this accomplished. And sharing that struggle makes all the difference. So I hope that helps. Jim, I know you've been to the top of big mountains, different kind of climbing than this. So doesn't really compare, but it's a different story.
Well, they all compare because they have a story and they have a struggle. By the way, Rod, while I'm talking, will you put in the call link into that group text? Jocelyn was having a hard time finding it.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, thanks. Real quickly on my own mountain climbing story is I had trained for months to climb Mount Whitney for the second time with a guide, and he decided it would be a good idea to bring a second person because he was guiding him on 2 peaks in 2 days. And we got up to 14,000 feet, and this guy already knew he had pulmonary issues and anxiety and all these other things. And we wound up having to turn around literally, 300 yards from the actual summit to take him back to safety. And the icing on the cake, not only not being able to summit that trip, but I had to carry his shit down the hill. So I was less than happy on that. And I had some real struggles with it. But what I like most about your story, Rod, and for all of us is, I kind of relate it to 75 Hard or some of the other hard things that I've done in my life, is that when you have struggles, these are the things that you can reach back to find a way through your challenges, especially in business. When you're having a tough day, when you're having a challenge in getting your business off the ground, or a challenge with a business partner, or with, the systems in play, whether that's trying to get a business license or the banking or whatever that looks like, when you're faced with struggles and challenges in business, you can pull from these types of stories and think about the resilience that it took to get through those obstacles, and use that as a tool to say, you know what, this is just a bank. This is just a hiccup in my relationship. I can get through this because I was able to get through something far greater, something far tougher. And that's one of the reasons why I like to talk about finding challenges in your life, having goals that are really lofty that you can seek to achieve, because by stretching ourselves, it makes us better on the daily, not settling for less. And Rod, I appreciate you taking the time to tell us a family story and what you guys overcame as a family. I'm sure it was a really special time for all of you. And I know we all have those things. So I would take the time to reflect on some of those and be grateful for those stories and incorporate those into your tool chest of getting through tough and challenging times. So thank you for sharing that. We talked a little bit about posturing on the podcast that Rod and I recorded just before this. And if you're somebody that listens to Andy Frisella, he was talking about that with Alex Hermosi this week. And the thing that resonated with me the most, and I wanted to bring this up tonight, it's a little bit off topic, but they were talking about Alex going to a dinner with friends and family, and they had brought some young entrepreneurs to talk to Alex, and Alex gave them some recommendations. One of them was to get an LLC. Well, when he saw them at a later date, maybe it was a couple months later, I said, "Hey, how's that going?" And the response was, "Well, I'm working through getting the LLC established." Well, the reality is you can establish an LLC in about 15 minutes online, especially in some of these smaller states. Maybe California is going to take an hour, but it's not that hard. It's not even a thing that you're working through the logistics of setting up an LLC. And that resonates with me because so often people in the world of being coached want to put up their own barriers to market, their barriers to start, their reason for not launching the business. And that's this posturing of, oh, well, I've got to do this really important thing first. That's bullshit. Figure out what needs to be done and work through it. And if it is a big, lofty, long process like this real estate school I'm in right now, you can do other things in the meantime. By the way, this real estate school that I'm in, and I've talked about this a couple of weeks ago, is 70 hours of online training. Then I've got to take all the tests that everybody's heard about. In the meantime, though, I've asked a friend of mine who's a real estate guru in town to introduce me to some of the brokers in town so that I can start doing my homework for post-test after I succeeded in passing it, that I'll know who I might want to work with as a broker to activate my license. So there's always things that you could be doing along the way without posturing and delaying your time to be successful in your entrepreneurial endeavors. So that's my 2 cents on your topic, Rod. I don't know if you want to open it for questions or where you want to go with this, but thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you very much. Number one, I want to do something a little bit different and kind of lighten it up a little bit. And you get to get a piece of Rod Kuntz you probably haven't seen before. But because we have Taylor Claridge on the line, Taylor, your photo's not on, so your hands are probably full. And I don't know if you have your voice back, but you were 12 years old, and I don't even know if you remember. Well, I'm sure you remember that trip because I think there were tears involved on the way down a couple of different times. But what did you learn from that experience, if you would share that with the group?
Here I am. Hi.
Hey.
Well, my dad was talking about my voice because I just am getting over my second bout with strep in the last couple of months. So that was an adventure. Well, Dad, I'm kind of glad you called me out, although I don't know how articulate I will be. It's funny that you are elaborating on this story because a couple of years back, actually, when I still lived in Colorado, decided to write out my own experience that I had with climbing Great Northern, honestly, just the one time. And you're right, there were definitely tears on that trip. And for me, it was on the way up. We, at one point, or I might have been taking the lead because my brothers were way up high. They had already been to the summit by this time. And so it was me, and then you and Mom were bringing up the rear. And I somehow got us on a goat trail. So, but this actually was like, it wasn't like the woman who had left the review. This was a legitimate goat trail. So we were on shale, 8,000 feet up in the air. And by the way, I don't think you said this, but Great Northern Mountain is the highest mountain peak in the Great Bear Wilderness of Montana. So it really is like legit. It's high, it's intense. So when I got us on that goat trail, that's how I remember it anyway. I was frozen in place. Like I thought I was going to die because I was looking straight down. We're on loose, flat rock, thousands of feet. And I was thinking this is how it ends. And what happened next though was I couldn't move. I was paralyzed. And I know you were talking me through it and stuff. Devin and Justin appeared out of thin air. They magically appeared. And it actually makes me emotional because so much of my life, so much of my success, I attribute to the strong men in my life. And so Justin and Devin, they appeared, they grabbed my hands, they gave me a hug. They said like, it's going to be okay. And they were able to guide me step by step until the summit. So I never really thought back to that. I never debriefed about that story until fast forward, a decade plus later, and I'm climbing up a mountain in the middle of winter in the Colorado tundra with my 2 kids, and I see them behind me and they're worried. I know that it's going to be okay, but they're like, "Oh, there's snow. Like, I heard something weird. It's just us out in the wilderness." I mean, Spencer was up ahead. He was skinning up the mountains on skis. But anyway, so I'm looking at them, and all of a sudden I realize, like, it's my turn to be that person now. Like, now it's me. And sorry, I just love this story because for me it's life changing. And that's how I want to live my life, But more than that, I also realized that sometimes the lesson is that we do have to lean into somebody else. And you touched on that. We have to lean into someone else's strength. And for me, it's like, okay, so then when we're the grown up, when we're the adult, and there's nobody else around, who do we lean on? And for me, that's my faith in God. And yeah. Anyway, cool. Thanks for coming to my Cry Fest.
Thanks. I didn't mention also that there have been several deaths on Great Northern Mountain. I didn't tell my wife that before we went up, and there have been a few since we've summited. It can be precarious. So again, the lessons there are lean on people. And this group is somebody you can lean into if you're having trouble. So that's part of what we're looking at here. Jocelyn, welcome. Hello. We got you. All right. Does anyone else have any questions that we can handle for you? We've still got plenty of time. We can do a recap. I actually have a full-blown lesson. Before I decided to do Great Northern, I did pull up a little lesson on sharing your struggles and why. So this was from AI. I took Rachel's advice from our last call and started playing around with AI, and AI came up with 7 reasons. And if you guys want those, I'll certainly hit those for you, because artificial intelligence is still intelligent.
Hey, Rod,
Yep.
I put it in the show notes. If you're working on a project or a business endeavor and you just want to bounce it out there with this group, that's what we're here for. Okay. Jim, I know you got things going on. Chris, I would love to hear from you. Craig, you addressed something a couple of weeks ago. We want this to be a value, and the value not only comes to you when you bring it up, but it can also be to the rest of the group in the answers and the discussion that we pull out of this. And I don't mean to put everybody on the spot, but yet I am. Between Rod and I, we've got 50 plus years of business experience and doing a lot of things. And I was just rattling off to another member last week. He says, I'm going to add this to my group of memberships. I said, that's fine, but you realize that 3 people in this group do exactly what you are looking to add another group to. So, don't feel like you've got to bounce around. And if you're uncomfortable asking the question out loud, put it in the group chat. You can put it directly to me if you're embarrassed or you don't want to put it out there for everybody, and I'll read it. I'll leave your name off, but we want to see people moving. We want to see people successful in their businesses. And I know there's a lot of rah groups out there that will get you motivated and will help you network, but this is where we can kind of work on the nuts and bolts of what that looks like. That's why we have the document files. If you need a business plan or a budget or marketing tools, they're all in the document arena so that you've got resources. As many of you know, I spent a lot of time in Sean Whalen's group. I actually helped coach in Rob Bailey's group, as well as the Arte Syndicate. And all those groups bring a lot of value on, kind of top line and get you fired up to do some stuff. But eventually you've got to generate that action when you go back home or when you get off that call. And that action is what we want to help you with. We want to help you work through that business plan or help you go raise some money or figure out what that looks like or how to structure your partnership from a legal perspective. I know I've had conversations with group members about that. So let's not inhibit your ability to move because of your lack of asking good questions. You're only going to be as good as your best questions. So feel free to do that. I don't know if you want to add on to that, Rod, because I'm not seeing any hands or any questions come through, but look, there's no excuses for not finding the next step. And really, that's kind of what it's about. If you're working through something, whatever that next step is, we can take small bites every week. And when you look back, you're going to go, wow, we got a lot done over a period of time. Jim, because you're always on live. I love seeing your photo, Jim. I'm going to use Jim's example. He's in a couple groups, and he's managed to network with some people. And through the opportunities in these groups, including this one, he has been able to land some business opportunities that will basically pay for every dollar he's ever spent in these groups the last couple of years, and give him some opportunities that will last a very, very long time. Jim, I'm intentionally leaving the companies off because I know that's, kind of your world and your privacy, unless you choose to share it. But Jim has been taking small steps and small bites for 12 months. And now it's all coming to that tipping point. We had a discussion about a week and a half ago. It's coming to this tipping point. It's like, wow, all these things are on my plate now, and my plate is full. So I'm excited to see what Jim does, but I want to get everybody in this group to that point. So that's my 2 cents. I'll let Rod continue his call, or you're welcome to ask me any questions too.
All right. Well, I'm going to call some people out too, because before we got on the record today, I was mentioning to Palin, he's in Casper, Wyoming, and I actually have family over there that is in at least a sideline business to what Palin does. And I know Palin has other aspirations, including flight, besides what he's doing right now. And you just never know where that next lead, that next referral, that next contact will take you. And I can tell you from years in commission sales, you never know that next person you talk to who leads you to somebody who leads you to somebody. And the next thing you know, 6 months, 7 months later, you've got something on your plate that was from a seed you planted so far ago. It happens all the time. So use these opportunities. And Palin, I do hope you look up that contact. If you want phone numbers or anything else, reach out to me after this call, and I'll be happy to even get something set up. But I know that they would be happy to see you. It's just like family when you mention stuff like that. And I will also say, Fred, I've been following you, watching how you've been motivated, not just from our calls, but from everybody else, and the Red Suit Realtor got you on fire to start doing something on a daily basis. And that's something that, our own Rachel got me fired up to start doing here. And I think I've been going almost 3 months now. So I look forward to you continuing on. And you've got your hand up. So go ahead and unmute yourself and throw it out there, Fred.
All right. Well, thanks for the compliment. I appreciate that. So just wanted to share some of because on the topic of sharing struggles, that was a big struggle for me, is to be willing to be vulnerable and getting on camera, but I think that's the purpose of these groups, is that, I saw you do it, Rod. I've been seeing Jim do it, and over the years step up his game, because he'd be on occasionally and then kind of ramp up the frequency. But I set some goals early in the year. One of them was the podcast in February. We've been consistent weekly with that. And even though I think we're going on I got 2 podcasts tomorrow. One I've been invited to be on early in the morning, and then I've got one in the afternoon. But it's pretty interesting to see the evolution of, number one, getting comfortable from the first podcast to the number 18 or 19 that we're on now. Just getting comfortable, getting more clear with your thoughts, being able to articulate, and also extract, some nuggets out of the people that you're interviewing. The personal one on the 30-day challenge was I think that was probably harder, because I think that you're I don't know, you've got a couple minutes and you're going to share something personal, who I am, what do I do? But what's interesting to me in both those examples, it's opened my mind up, but it's also been able to help me share bits and pieces of myself so people get to know me better. And the weird thing is not so much that I want to attract outside strangers, but, I've shared a couple things on the 30-day challenge, about the way I grew up. Well, there's been a disconnect in my family for years. I have 3 sisters, and my sister is commenting to me direct that things that wouldn't get brought up otherwise, because she shares the same feelings and adversity that we grew up with, but there's always been this barrier. So to anybody that's out there, and it's up to you how vulnerable you want to be and how much you want to share, but there's a tremendous amount of, there's gifts on the other side of these challenges for you. So I wanted to share that if it motivates you to get out there and share your truths, because it's important. And the biggest thing too is you can't carry them around with you forever. Sometimes you got to have an outlet to get them out of you, so that way you can grow, evolve, and move on. So anyway, just wanted to give you guys an update on that. And we've had some amazing guests. We had Red Suit we did an interview with. We had Bishoy Kella, who was on Andy Frisella's podcast, because he was a 75 hard, probably the most recognized 75 hard candidate that was out there, from 350 pounds that he had achieved, and then was able to get down to like 170 something pounds. The guy's just a sheer beast. So we had interviewed him, and then tomorrow we're interviewing the conservative ant. He's a guy that, you know, he walks on the wild side, but he's got conservative views, and he has right at about 250,000 followers, because he's opposed to the way they're going about supporting this LGBTQ. So in honor of our podcast and keep it tried and true, we're trying to keep it just like we said, is we're going to have people on that have the same mission, different perspective, and share the same core common values. So anyways, wanted to share that. And then I have one question real quick. As Jim knows, I'm building out a new business, and to put it in simple terms, I have a little bit of PTSD from the last arrangement that I had in my business. And I feel like I'm a victim of analysis paralysis when it comes to figuring out how I want to raise capital. And so it seems like everybody that I talk to that, you know, I think they definitely have experience, you know, they've had their successes, but everybody has a different way to go about it. But I'm having a hard time dealing with picking a way to go. And I don't want it to keep holding me back, because I've got only so much runway before I have to make a decision. So my question is, how do you guys deal with analysis paralysis and the PTSD from former deals?
Rod, I'll answer that, and you can follow up if you don't mind. Here's the first thing, Fred, is determine the value of your company, or what your prospective value is. Okay, so we'll just use $1 million as an example. If you think that your company's worth $1 million, or going to be worth $1 million in your early forecast, then you need to determine what you want to give up for that money. Okay, and that's where we can all get stuck at. Is it, do you want to raise money through giving ownership? Do you want to raise money, through a hard money loan, which is, right now it's probably 14, 15%. Are you going to look at traditional bank loans? Are you going to go and do a friends and family raise? Whatever that looks like to you, base it on the valuation of your company or the assets that you're going to leverage to get that money. Okay. So once you've kind of figured out those logistics, then you're going to want to make sure that you document it appropriately to reach the right people. And you can come back to me. I do have some capital raise legal documents and disclosures so that you've got investors on the line, the full disclosures there, and then as well as some of one of those subscription agreements look like and stuff like that. I'm happy to walk you down that road, but we can't do much until you determine what your needs are. Okay. And once you determine those needs, a savvy investor is going to ask you how you're going to put that money to work, because they're going to want to analyze, hey, if your company's worth $1 million and you want $100,000 from me, how are you going to put that $100,000 to work to pay me back? Because that's really what it's all about. Okay. And then finally on that payback, what are you going to give me on top of my money back, right? Is that ownership? Is it a percentage? Like I said, hard money loan, et cetera. So you've got to look at those things and consider the people that you're approaching. Once you've figured out those things, then you need to go out and shop it. And the most important thing I'll tell you about shopping for money is find people that are going to bring value to your company. And we call that a strategic investor. Find money from somebody that will bring not only the money to the table, but value. Because the reality is, if you've got something of value that you can raise capital on, let's go back to that $100,000 that you might raise. Money's not real hard to find if you've got all those other components. So when you look at it that way, then you need to look for somebody that's bringing value and strategic partnerships, because you will find once the money comes in, if they're not strategically aligned, they're not going to understand your business, first of all. They'll have a lot of questions about how you're going to make the money back, but they're not going to bring anything more to you. Okay. I've always looked for strategic partners. After my first capital raise years ago, which is a $5 million raise, they weren't strategic partners. They were good people and they knew a lot of other people, but it did not bring me more business. Now, as we added on top of that 5 million up to the 12, everybody in between brought strategic value. And that's how we were able to grow the company, because we looked at their strategic partnerships and how we can do more with that money. So there's a few critical factors. I will say this as a caveat, because everybody's listening. I always encourage, and I know you and I talked about this, Fred, I always encourage people to bootstrap it and not take outside money. Beg, borrow, steal, get another job, sell all your shit in the garage, whatever it looks like to not have to borrow money. I always say do that first, but I do understand, and I have raised money on a lot of occasions. So, if that's the route you want to go, those are the things I would consider, how I'd go about it, and the steps that I would take to do it. And again, I'm willing to help you with the documentation, because that lives on my computer. I don't want to provide it on the Young Entrepreneur Syndicate, because I'm not here to give legal advice, but I'm happy to slide it to you outside of that and let you use the template. So that's my answer. I don't know if you got more to add to that, Rod.
A little bit. First, great advice. And I think that should take care of some of the trepidation you have. Jim's talking about the legal stuff. If you have it all lined out in your head and on paper and you take care of it legally, that should take care of some of your PTSD. Now, the other part of it, you have to take care of yourself, Fred. All right. Look at me. Let that shit go. Okay. What I want you to do is go back to that last experience and literally write down the lesson you learned from that. The good that came from that. You learned a lesson out of that. And if that's just to be careful and make sure it doesn't happen again, that's the lesson you take. So carry that lesson with you. Don't carry the baggage with you. All right. This is a choice. You got to let that go, because you got to move on to the next thing. You got to close the books on that business and move on, because if you keep dragging it in, your investors are going to see that you're hesitant too. You're going to be dragging that with you. You got to let it go.
Yeah.
So that's my moral encouragement for you.
Yeah. So I appreciate that. And I think you guys brought up, bootstrapping keeps coming up, and that's where I want to go. I guess where I'm a little gray is that I don't understand what all the financial options are, so that I can either borrow money, hard money loans, different avenues. So I'll reach out to you, Jim, on that. And then I do have a list of strategic partners that I put down, because everybody's always interested until you ask for the money. But anyways, I keep a running list. But the epiphany that I've had is I want people that bring value to the business and can help it accelerate quicker and have a decent understanding of the business. So I appreciate that feedback. And then I'll reach out to you on the side here, and we can talk about some different options and a way to properly document everything.
Yeah, happy to help. We helped a bunch of high schoolers learn how to flip it, and that is literally just flipping stuff for cash. But, when you flip things, or you utilize your resources with intent, and if the intent is to fund your business and you're willing to make some sacrifices to get that business off the ground, because it's everything that you embody in your mind, spirit, and soul, you'll get it, even if that means selling your $6,000 mountain bike. Okay. I mean, look, if you really believe in the business, you can buy 100 mountain bikes when you get there. So let's have that conversation offline. I'm around all week. Please hit me up.
Okay,
Jocelyn, no problem, Fred. Jocelyn, I can answer your question real fast. And here's why. As I talked about, you weren't on the call a couple weeks ago. So I'm in real estate school right now. There's my book, right? This thing is 70 hours of training here. Now, typically when they write books, they put the important stuff up front. Okay. And I, this is great. I don't have a long memory span, and I've had to rewatch some of these videos a couple times, and I failed a few of the tests already. This is actually one of the harder things I've done in a lot of years, but I will tell you this. The one thing that I took away, one of the several things I should say, is do not do a business deal in real estate if there's any lien on it. That's a big no. Walk away. And that is from the instructor. It stuck with me hard. I'm not a real estate investor, but I'm like, that makes a lot of sense. They put it in the beginning of the book, because I'm only on the 6th chapter, a couple hundred pages in, and that was in the beginning. Do not do a deal when there's a lien. That is a massive red flag. Okay. Have the seller clear up the lien, keep your hard money where it's at, or go look for something else. There's a lot of real estate out there. And you know what? I was looking at some real estate today, and it's getting better and better. And it's going to continue to get better because this market can't handle this, and realtors are dropping out because they're not moving anything. So keep your money and your hard money and wait and find the right deal for you. Don't do a deal with a lien. So you can ask a lawyer, you can ask a current real estate expert, but that was in my book recently. So all right. Rod, any thoughts on Fred? Are we good, or any other questions?
No, I think we gave Fred the 1-2 there. You got him on the back end. That's good. Your advice to Jocelyn, even without reading that real estate manual, that would have been my advice too. Yeah, just stay away. That's just like red flag, danger, danger. So, yeah, I think it's all good.
Hey, let me throw a couple things of marketing out there real quick, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
I'd suggested in the chat here that we follow one another on Instagram, and I'd love to see our members do that. Craig put his there. It's _cloud_guy_. You know, following people and engaging with them will help them grow their numbers. Okay. Saving their post using that little flag looking icon will help them increase their business. Let's help one another in what we're doing. I see all you guys engage with my stuff, and I appreciate that. Craig, you're especially good at it. Or Chris, I'm sorry, Chris, you're especially good at it. I see your stuff. Let's post, repost, support one another, and help this group grow. It's important that we support one another, and it does make a difference. If anybody's been the most consistent, Rod Kuntz have been the most consistent since he started doing videos every morning, bright and early, while he's off to his morning workout. I will throw something else out there that I learned today. If you're in the market, this is about the opportunity. If you're in the market to own a bourbon company, if you want to buy a bourbon company, Rachel, who is our other partner here, is going to bring her bourbon company to market for sale. The bottom line is, and I don't think she'd be upset if I shared this with you guys, her heart's just not in it anymore. She's making a shift to really focus on health and wellness with her clients. And she asked me how she would bring her product to market to sell the brand. It's called Lynx Spirits. It's all female owned and operated, including the master distiller and the people that work at this distillery. So if you've got a lady in your life that you think that'd be a good fit, or you want to convert it to whatever, I know that the purchase price comes with a year's worth of marketing from her team, which she's got one of the best teams out there. And I know it's very palatable in terms of, the price that she's looking for. So there is an opportunity out there if you're looking for that. By the way, Chris has got his handles up there. So does Jocelyn. So does Rod. And you know what? If you're looking at being in business or starting a business, make sure that you have some social media presence. You can't afford not to have it. And if Sam was speaking up right now, she would tell you how important YouTube is, because YouTube's taken on all the same aspects that Instagram is. So they've got shorts, they've got stories, video, all the same things that Instagram's doing it. And they've got a much better search engine there. So let's connect back in our platform. Love to see some interaction on our Y.E.S community. And I'll turn it back to Rod, and I'll be quiet for the night. So thanks, Rod.
Right. So I'm just going to wrap it up with this. And I like learning new stuff here too. And you just mentioned it, Jim, that YouTube is the next platform that's really gaining traction. And we learned that right here from Rachel when she was doing her marketing cram course, and we were getting the fire hose, right? And I thought, okay, how am I going to handle, you know how I am, a recovering techno peasant, right? I'm not into this. That's why I do, it's 5 o'clock somewhere in the morning, because it's first thing, I get it out of the way. I don't care, right? And I thought, how am I going to get this content? If I'm leveraging the same content, how am I going to get this onto YouTube? I hired my 12-year-old granddaughter, who's a whiz with this stuff. And she's coming over on Saturdays, and I have probably, 30 downloads on a YouTube channel. I didn't do it. My 12-year-old granddaughter did it at $20 an hour. So I'm investing and I'm leveraging what I'm learning here, but find a way. Eventually I'm going to get I'm going in and tweaking some stuff. So eventually I'll get myself there, but spread the love, spread the joy, and figure it out. Just get it done. So no excuses. And by the way, she's having a ball because she's listening to my content, right? As she's posting my 5 o'clock somewheres, she started following me on her Instagram account, and she's doing the likes and sending them to her friends. Who knew? Young entrepreneurs. We can find them anywhere. We just have to cultivate it. So anyway, that's it. You guys are great. I appreciate y'all jumping on. Sorry we missed last week. Hope we made it up for you today. And again, the offer is open. You can always shout out to Jim and myself and Rachel. All right. Good night, everyone.
We'll be back next week, 6 p.m. Montana Standard Time. Hey, Chris, Redneck Watches. You guys got to follow this. By the way, Rachel's not on tonight, but she did a QR code on a watch band that goes back to her company. I just put the picture in there. I'll tag you in it in social media. So, hey, good to see everybody. See you next week. We are available for you if you need to connect with us. Fred, I look forward to talking to you. Anybody else, you know how to reach us. Let's chat. Let us help you get past whatever it is you're working through. Jocelyn, just say no. Have a great night, everybody.
That's right. Good night.